Dasha Wishes, Language Dog here. Y hoy, chicos y chicas, nos parlons au sujet de sexiness. Specifically, how attractive is the language that you are learning? This is what I am here to provide today, comrade. There are languages that you should learn that will give you maximum rizz with that one girl, guy, or non-binary if you prefer. I will be going through a list of 20 languages and rank them on the rizz scale. By the end of this video, you will know what the sexiest language is so that you can learn it now. Hopefully, none of the languages that you are learning get down in the rejected tier. However, in all seriousness, any language in the world is worth learning, even Danish. So props to you if you are on your journey or are starting your journey towards learning a language today with this video. If you would like my all-knowing wisdom when it comes to language learning, or as I like to say, language acquisition, please subscribe to Language Dawg to get the best tips and information you will find in the entire multiverse. And for even more free content, head over to my other channel, Lang Dawg, where I make videos with my co-host Lang. You'll be missing out since he literally time traveled into the past and learned Latin. So if you don't believe me, then go to him since he knows what he's talking about. Anyway, let's start the tier list with French. Starting off the list with a very controversial language is highly concerning politics language, also called French. French is spoken in the best country where there are absolutely no other minor languages spoken, Belgium. But not only in Belgium, French is spoken in a ton of places in Africa, and also freaking Louisiana. Oh, and also it's spoken in France. I forgot to mention that. So because French is a big lingua franca, that's already a big plus because many people speak it. 310 million, in fact. Despite being such a big language, French is known for having complex grammar and difficulty to pronounce. Personnellement, je pense que tout le monde qui dit ça sont cringe pour la lingua vagante, mais hey, I get it. Since French has a lot of nasal sounds, which are really hard to pronounce, such as un, on, o, a, and e. This is why personally I think if you're able to master French pronunciation and act like a wesh de Paname, you will be heavily complimented since people do not expect at all for foreigners, especially Americans, to learn their language. This is why I think French is a double-edged sword, because if you're a terror chad like me and speak the language well to a waiter at a restaurant, they will give you free food and their car keys to rob them for free. However, if you speak French like an absolute idiot and sound drunk to a waiter, they'll spit in your food and steal your car keys to rob you for free, against your will. And also, French is called the language of love, meaning that many people find it hot. Like, come on, in order to say one in French, you literally have to moan, And in order to say you're excited about something, you literally have to say you're horny. This is why I place French solidly in the terror chat tier. Okay, next we have Arabic. Arabic is hard to categorize since it is technically a language family. So if I was reviewing each dialect, I would be more thorough, but I'm just gonna have to lump them all together, which is bad and good. Because on one hand, you could be hearing the most gorgeous type of Arabic ever, as if you were sending to heaven, but then the next minute, it could sound like you're literally hearing someone trying to break their throat while talking to you. I think if you are learning Arabic, specifically as a foreigner, that is super sexy, since native speakers know their language is harder than trying to get rid of haram. And also, if you are able to write Arabic with fluidity and then show it to a crush, they will probably immediately be turned on from the elegant writing. I mean, just look at it. However, Arabic is not for everyone since it can sound soft and soothing, but easily switch to being hard and harsh. But it is still a very amazing language to learn, and if you tell anyone you are learning Arabic, chances are they will find you interesting. If I was doing a specific dialect, I would easily put it in the hot tier, but taking the whole language family into account, Arabic still solidly goes into the cool tier. Hindi is a language spoken primarily in Bollywood country, having over 600 million speakers. So if you want to unlock communication with a vast amount of people, then you are smart for picking Hindi. And people from Bollywood country will literally freak out and condense down into atoms when you shock them with the namaskar. However, Hindi is definitely not the most preferred language since even though its writing system is beautiful, it at times can just be confusing and stagnant, especially compared to other alphabets. And also the pronunciation is easy, yet just a little flat and not that exciting. And also native speakers argue over it. I think if you tell someone that you're learning Hindi, they'll respect you, but probably won't immediately fall for you and have a honeymoon. So Hindi goes in the mid-tier, sadly. Okay, so it looks like next we have Swedish. Spoken in the country of IKEA, I think. Learning Swedish will unlock you with a very interesting language, mid-weather, and meatballs. I mean, Swedish is really easy, honestly. And on the surface, it does not sound too interesting because it just blends with the Scandinavian styles like the other Germanic languages. So personally, I would say that if you are learning Swedish, you need to spice it up a bit. I mean, you're smart for learning it since it's easy. I really love Swedish, but I have to be honest and put it in the cringe tier. It's just like any other Germanic language, bro. Dutch, another Germanic language. On the surface, Dutch is like a really awesome language, but however, sadly, Dutch is bisexual since you'll be reading a sentence and be able to understand like everything, and then suddenly everything is just gibberish. It does not mix well together at all. And this is because there are English words and there's just like plain old gibberish Dutch. And the English words just feel out of place. I would still be willing to put Dutch up higher, but the final sword in the coffin is the pronunciation and the harsh G sound. So when people speak, you just sound like you're speaking gibberish really well, but still gibberish. And they're straining their throat with the So if you wanted to sound hotter than any Dutch or Belgian person, you would have to not speak Dutch. But I mean, they wouldn't be able to understand you. But I really wouldn't worry about it, especially the people from Belgium, since they don't even speak Dutch anyway. I'm sorry, but I have to put Dutch in the rejected tier. Okay, so moving on, we have Russian, also known as socialism language or communism language, but I won't go that far. Russian is spoken in the Giga Chad country, known as Belarus. Russian is really hard and frustrating, which is why I think if you tell someone who does not know how hard Russian is that you are learning Russian or did learn Russian, they will be impressed. However, if you tell someone who does know how hard Russian is that you are learning Russian or did learn Russian, they'll probably marry you, especially if you have a super good accent, because if you have a great accent, it's super sexy, especially if you are a foreigner. You will literally be seen as a terror chat and accepted as a comrade. However, I can't put Russian in terror chat tier, bro. I'm sorry, I can't. Because a lot of native speakers just sound drunk or stupid when they, like, speak Russian. Which sounds strange, but, like, bro, your native language is literally Russian. And you're not giving it any pizzazz. And stop screaming it on CSGO. It's just annoying. All in all, if you are a man learning Russian, then you probably will come off as super masculine. And if you are a woman learning Russian, you will probably attract more guys around you since they eat that Russian shiesta up. Like, literally, to all the women out there, a lot of men have a strange attraction to Russian women. Not me, though. So if you can convince them that you are from the small town of Nea Russia and speak fluent Russian, they'll probably ask you out immediately. So Russian solidly goes in the hot tier. Next is Indonesian. Chances are that if you are learning Indonesian, you actually know a lot about culture or just know how to become bilingual fast, since Indonesian is super easy as a language. The grammar is simple but does not have a lot of cognates with other major languages, so if you forget a word, you might be cooked. And additionally, Indonesians talk extremely fast, and it gives off an admittedly choppy rhythm that is just not for everyone and comes off as a little strange. Personally, I love Indonesian, but if you're trying to rizz up a girl on Tinder, they probably won't even know that Indonesia exists. Props to you if you're learning this language though. But if you want to sound attractive, you might have to change your accent when speaking, leading to me putting Indonesian in the cringe tier. It's not cringe, just less than mid. Norwegian. When it comes to Norwegian, spoken in the country of West IKEA, Norwegian is pretty much the same as Swedish, but worse, since Norwegian is a pretty cool niche language, but does not provide anything too interesting as a Germanic language once again. I think Norwegian is cool, especially when looking at it, but when one hears it, it's not particularly attractive at all. I think you might be able to give off the impression to your date that you are super intelligent since Norwegian has complicated grammar, but they probably won't buy it and think you're just learning the language to rizz up Magnus Carlsen. This is why Norwegian sadly goes into the rejected tier. It just doesn't sound interesting. Alright, now we have an African language, Swahili. Swahili is pretty interesting because, you know, it's an African language, which means that it's really hard. But if you successfully learn it, you'll probably unlock a ton of communication in Africa because it is a lingua franca last time I checked. I think people who learn Swahili are probably really smart and have a great dedication to culture, but it is not the most attractive language. It certainly is interesting, but there are more languages out there that are immediately gonna get people's heart pumping. And sadly, Swahili is too flat sounding to be like those other languages. There are crazy sounding African languages that I would talk about, but I simply do not have enough time in this video. So if you'd like to see me make a part 2, please like the video so that YouTube knows that you enjoyed it, and comment down what language you would like me to cover. Swahili respectively goes in the mid tier. Okay, next we have Spanish. I think Spanish is pretty interesting since there's a lot of different accents. Like, if you speak Mexican, then you just are speed running the language. And if you speak Spanish from Spain, also known as Castilian, then it's a likely chance that you're actually speaking independence language, but we won't get into that. I think Spanish is cool because it spices things up and it just makes it more attractable to people. But however, I think Spanish nowadays has just gotten basic, especially because of how many people speak it. And also, Italians are really trying hard to be attractive because they literally sing when they talk, so Spanish definitely is not as hot. But Spanish is still cool. I mean, I'll never learn it, but it's cool. Cool tier. Yeah, that's all you're gonna get. Sorry, guys. Chinese, Mandarin Chinese specifically, spoken in Shama's home country of NYC. Let's admit it. If you are on a date and you bring up the question, where are you from? And, your partner says, I don't know, Germany, for example. And you ask, okay, how many languages do you speak? And they say, oh, I speak German, of course, English, a little bit of French, nonchalantly, trying to sound impressive. But then they ask you, where are you from? And you say, the best country of all time, America. They probably won't even ask you how many languages you speak and will just assume you're monolingual. But if they do ask and you say, oh, I speak English, of course, Spanish, French, and fluent Chinese Mandarin, your date will immediately drop their jaw and be shocked, asking for proof that you speak Chinese. And when you hit them with the 你是东西人, they will immediately jump out of their chair and kiss you. Basically, wishes. In other words, you are literally the coolest person of all time when you throw out there that you know Chinese. Even more so if you learn Chinese and are not Asian. Which I know sounds racist, but it's actually kind of disgusting. People who have an Asian background who learn Chinese, most people just assume they already spoke Chinese in the first place and they don't get as much recognition, which I think is just horrible and should be stopped. But once you do realize that Chinese takes a long time and that those people who actually learn Chinese learned it so they can interview John Cena in his native language, it really is a feat and testament to hard work and dedication. Chinese is notorious for being the hardest language of all time and the coolest if you can speak it. Although I do not agree with either of those claims, I would say it is the Asian language that most people will be absolutely head over heels for if you learn it. Hold on, sorry. I have to change something. Anyway, and let's not even mention the native speakers. If you go to Chinatown and whip out Chinese, you will probably be invited to at least 5 homes, have at least 20 free meals, and 100 friend requests on WeChat. That is if the native speakers who were shocked didn't already explode right in front of you, which did literally happen to me. However, the thing with Chinese is that some of the accents are pretty weird. I mean, some foreigners can't really hear the difference, but foreigners can't hear the difference between any Asian languages for that matter. But some of the accents are admittedly strange and sound a little robotic or fast and choppy, and like they're trying to change the tone of their voice every 5 seconds for some reason. Even though this would warrant the language going down into the cool or even mid-tier, the social status that you will gain and literally the free ad revenue you will get if you speak even a lick of Chinese catapults it up into the hot tier. Oh, and also I guess you'll get social credit. Portuguese is a really strange and uninteresting language. If you say that you speak Portuguese, they probably will just wonder why you don't speak Spanish. Portuguese easily goes into the rejected tier. Now, Brazilian, on the other hand, Brazilian is muito gostoso. Some people might actually not know how beautiful the sound of Brazilian is, but if you are able to speak fluent Brazilian to someone who doesn't know Brazilian, they'll probably think you're the sexiest specimen alive, especially if you do it to native Brazilians, because they're absolutely shocked when a foreigner learns their language. I mean, literally, if you learn this language and speak to a native, you'll probably get laid. I think Brazilian is so beautiful, especially because when you speak it, people do not immediately know which language you are speaking, which is a good thing because they will just get lost in your words and honestly fall for you. However, you must be careful, since if you're on a date and someone is able to guess your language, well, by someone I mean your date, of course, and they say, oh, you're speaking Portuguese, you should slap them in the face, beat them up, and have them pay the bill, since that's the most insulting thing anyone could ever say to you. Anyway, yeah, it goes in the terror chat tier. Terror chat tier, baby. Woo! Okay, anyway, Nihongo. Japanese is probably the coolest and most frustrating language of all time with its 3 writing systems. One is used to write normal Japanese words, and one is used to write foreign Japanese words, because I guess outside words are just not good enough. And one is literally just Chinese, but on steroids. I can make a video going into Japanese if you want, since I speak it fluently after binge watching One Piece once, but for the purpose of this video, I think Japanese easily goes into the terror chat tier. But despite being able to sound extremely masculine and sexy and like you're sophisticated and smart, most people who learn Japanese do not have a nice flow when they speak the language. Native speakers speak the language so majestically, but foreigners butcher it beyond repair. However, one of the worst things that has happened to Japanese is weebs. Now, obviously, I'm not a weeb. I only watched One Piece 58 times. But some people are absolutely crazy and have the aesthetic of learning Japanese but not actually learning the language since they can't comprehend it. Meaning that if you tell someone you're learning Japanese without showing them the cool alphabets, plural, they'll probably just think you watch sus anime, which you probably do. And the overall worst effect on the reputation on Japanese is, just the Japanese language learning community. It's actually really a shame. Learning Japanese is literally a shonen anime in itself, since people debate how to learn Japanese but don't actually learn it. I swear, they go crazy about pitch accent, Anki deck, comprehensible input, but if they were teleported and put into the slums of Hokkaido, Japan, they probably wouldn't know how to say hello. So for all these reasons, I'm so tempted to put the language down into the cringe and maybe even the rejected tier. However, there are people who will probably still realize how hard of a language it really is. And hey, the person you are trying to go after might be an anime body pillow collector like you, so I think it can still work out. This would warrant the language only in mid-tier, but I will be liberal since native speakers pronounce the language like gods, keeping Japanese in the cool tier. Okay, continuing, we have an underrated language, Danish. This is very interesting and unique, but this time it isn't ruined by its language learners, but by its own native speakers. We have I'm speaking Danish right now, actually. I think, to be honest, Danish is way more interesting than Swedish and Norwegian, which, if you didn't know, they're all North Germanic languages. When someone speaks Swedish or Norwegian, it's just basic Germanic stuff, but someone who whoops out Danish immediately sounds more fascinating, since they are literally twisting their tongue around in their mouth, trying to avoid an imaginary potato. This can make for some of the most beautiful and yet sus sounds of all time, like in the beautiful phrase, "Wo grot med flude." Danish would be higher, but one, some people might be turned off by this, and two, Danish nowadays is basically gibberish since native speakers forgot how to speak their own language, and written Danish is different than spoken Danish. So if you are trying to be an authentic Dane, you might become illiterate. Sorry. Which might be hot to some people, but personally, I have respect for you for learning Danish, but it might not be the best way to go. So, sorry. But all respect out there to native speakers who literally fought back against bullying from Swedes and Norsks during childhood. Danish goes into the mid-tier. Next, we have the global language, sometimes referred to as English, but recently people are preferring the name American. Obviously, just into British, which if you want, I can judge British English in part 2. But personally, I refer to the language as global interventionism needs. And that's part of the problem with this language, actually. It used to be extremely Chad and revolutionary back when the founding fathers like JFK, Ronald Reagan, and Obama founded the USA. But now, since the entire world uses this language, it's just really boring and redundant, and frankly takes away culture. Now, you have to speak English, so I do not think you'll get rejected per se, but if that's all you speak and you don't have your own native language, or worse off, you're American and haven't learned a second language, you're probably at the bottom of the hierarchy of men and/or women. So I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to put this in cringe tier, bro. Like, seriously, stop depending on English for everything and learn another language that is used as a lingua franca, like Esperanto. Wait, no, what the fuck? No, not that language, bro. Listen, stop. Do not learn Esperanto. It's like, bro, Esperanto does not even go in the rejected tier list. I mean, if you're learning Esperanto, you should probably go to jail. Submit to Zamenhof. Italian, all right, that's better. And yes, Italian is actually a lingua franca, if you didn't know, since there are a ton of languages in Italy. Some are dialects, some are languages, or a little bit muddy. So I can talk about them in part 2, again, if you want. Please like my content, guys. Okay, but here we go. This is the ultimate matchup between Italian and French to see if Italian is as attractive or even more attractive than French, since Italian and French are usually the two languages, at least Romance languages, that get thrown around in discussion for being the sexiest. And I mean, yeah, Italian is pretty hard. Well, it can be. But Italian is pretty hot. You got the singing, the hand gestures, the nice flow of the words, and just all that. However, it's not French, because in French, you don't have to sing in order to make the language sound nice. The language just is nice. But in Italian, if you are not singing an opera, chances are people can't understand you. You will definitely get laid if you learn Italian, but you will probably have to exaggerate your accent when you speak. And to native speakers of Italian, I'm noticing that you guys are starting to pronounce the language much more as if you were speaking Spanish. It's kind of always been that way, but especially now, it feels like you guys are literally cheating on your own language so you can wake up and just speak Spanish. Like, what the frick are you doing? So basically, what I'm trying to say is native speakers aren't even making their own language attractive. However, Italian, it's the standard hot language. It's very basic. It's admittedly safe, so if you learn it, I mean, you're going to get clout. You're going to be extremely fine. So I'm going to put it in the hot tier. So yeah, all right, this is our last language. I don't think I forgot any Romance languages, definitely not, no. All right, German. I think German, also known as beefier English, is also controversial, just like French, since people love it or absolutely detest it. And honestly, it is completely dependent on how you speak the language, meaning that German could literally go anywhere on the list. Like, It could be rejected or terror chat, depending if you are the type of guy to get rejected or be a terror chat. However, I think when you speak German, if you truly have a command over the language, you can decide if you actually want to sound handsome and sexy or literally scream and spit in your partner's face, which they might find hot, I guess. Because literally people enjoy the harshness of German. They can find it masculine, but German isn't inherently harsh. And when it's spoken normally and naturally and just flows nice, people like that too. This means that learning German to a well and decent level in order to rizz up that one girl guy, or bisexual, is all dependent on you to find out how you want to speak the language and their preferences. Meaning that if you do it well, you're a terror chat, but if you do it wrong, you are rejected. But I'll be liberal with this and put German solidly at the bottom of terror chat tier, because if you're watching my content, you guys are terror chats. Alright, so I think those are all the languages. I guess now you know that the sexiest language of all time is French. Wait, yo guys, wait, what the frick is that? Romanian is the language, not only romance language, but just a language in general that has been forgotten. Like literally, if you say that you speak Romanian, most people will just think that you're obsessed with Andrew Tate or that you come from Rome, which is incredibly stupid. I think Romanian is very interesting, especially because it inherited the difficulty from Latin, and it now inherited the difficulty of Slavic languages, which means that if you speak Romanian, you already have the hotness of being able to speak a Romance language, but you have that added spice by speaking a Slavic language, and you can speak a language that is used to talk to dead people. That's why the Vatican speaks Latin, right? I think so. I don't know. So basically what I'm trying to say is that Romanian is just a powerhouse of flavor, basically. It's just the hidden gem of sexiness. I think when you speak Romanian, people won't know what the frick you're saying because they don't even know that Romanian exists, and it just sounds so out of this world. I think that you already are a terror chat. But what makes it even better than being a terror chat is that Romanian is just freaking difficult. Like, the FSI has propaganda that it's category 1, but I personally believe that Romanian is category 6. Since Latin is already extremely hard, but also because it inherited words from every single Slavic language, it didn't decide if it wanted to be a Romance language or a Slavic language or both. So it changes its rules all the time, and it's just completely complex where native speakers don't even know how to use grammar right, and they kind of just guess, which I think is extremely funny. So I think if you're able to speak Romanian, you literally unlocked the red pill. Like, you took the red pill. And I think that if you have already grown up speaking Romanian, then you just are a terror chat and you're very lucky. I also think that because Romanian has been long forgotten, it's time to dominate. And Romanian is definitely the language that you should learn this year. So Romanian deserves its own tier, a Romanian tier. Yeah, so Romanian is the sexiest language. Write me in the comments. And speaking about commenting, make sure to comment. Tell me what languages that you would like to see in part 2. If this video gets 5,000 likes, then I will definitely make a part 2. So comment what languages you'd like me to, discuss and talk about. And I'll give an objective opinion about it. Definitely not unbiased at all. Also, make sure to subscribe to the channel where I give you more goofy content and my sacred wisdom. Also, make sure to check out Dawg, which is my second channel with my time-traveling co-host Lang, where we just talk about language history, language learning, and language goofiness. It's a bit more serious, but I think that you'll enjoy that content over there. All right, guys. Zaijian, salut, tschüss, adios, bye.